Well, hello and welcome to a new series. Through this Advent season, we're going to be doing a series of devotionals looking at some of the classic Christmas passages and some that maybe we're not used to, maybe are a little bit out of the box. But my goal with this series is we want to push past some of the typical commercialization and materialism of the Christmas series and into something much deeper. And so, did you know that last year holiday sales passed the $1 trillion mark? Holiday consumer sales. Yes, that's 12 zeros. And each US household spent an average of $1,536 on Christmas gifts last year. And so gifts are great. We don't experience more of Jesus by saying no to those gifts, but as believers we recognize that Christmas is so much deeper. Christmas is so much richer than what we can buy in a store. There is joy for us there. There's a deep well of joy and satisfaction that we can press into. And so it's not by saying no to the gifts, it's not by saying no to the cocoa or the fun or the lights or the celebration. We want to be able to do those things with our families. But instead, what we want to do is we want to press into those gifts, press into the things that God has given us. And we want to find Jesus in the midst of it because Christmas is not ultimately about receiving gifts. It's not even ultimately about giving gifts, even though Jesus himself said it's more blessed to give than to receive. Christmas is about Jesus. And so we want to celebrate his birth. And so, what we're going to be doing, instead of focusing on just the singular event of Christmas like we so often do, we want to focus on the season of Advent. And the season of Advent, what that is about in the church calendar is it is a season of longing. A season where we step into the longing that Israel experienced as they were waiting for their coming king. We also want to step into our own longing. We want to recognize that not everything in the world, even at Christmas time, as magical as it is, not everything is perfect. Not everything is right. The commercials would tell you that this year, Christmas magic is going to be in the air. The kids aren't going to fight. Everybody is going to love their gifts for months and months. They won't just cast them aside after 5 days or 5 minutes. And the family will be reconciled. There won't be any conflict, and everything will be amazing. A Christmas miracle. But we know that that's not necessarily true because even at Christmas time, we still have sin in our hearts. We still have unresolved conflicts. We still have reconciliation that needs to happen. And so we step into the longing of the Israelites and we step into our own longing for all things to be made right. And so that's what we're going to do. For the first bit here, we're going to focus on some Old Testament prophecies or some Old Testament foreshadowings of the coming of Jesus at Christmas. My kids, they love Christmas. Once the Christmas lights start going up in the neighborhood, it is all over. Every time that we drive by in December or November for those total weirdos that get decorated before Thanksgiving, my kids will always, every single year, as soon as they see the first Christmas light, they will go, Christmas lights! And then the second time they see a house with Christmas lights, Christmas lights! And they have the same level of excitement, whether it's the first house, the second house, the third house, or the 736th house that we've passed with Christmas lights. It got so bad that after Christmas, we had to tell our kids, okay, you have to stop saying Christmas lights. But they still wanted to say something. And so what we told them to do is about a week after Christmas, when they see a house that still has its lights up, they can point at it and say, rule breakers, because they're supposed to be taking their lights down. Of course, we didn't take ours down until February, but we unplugged them, so that gives us a few more weeks. So, but my kids love Christmas. They look forward to Christmas every single year. But that is nothing compared to how much the Israelites were looking forward to Christmas. The story of the Old Testament, the story of the Israelites is long, and it is pregnant with anticipation for this coming king who is going to establish his kingdom and make everything right. And so before we jump into some of the famous prophecies, what I want to do is go back to the book of Exodus. And so Genesis finishes Joseph, he goes to Egypt. to save his people from the famine. And so the Israelites are in Egypt, they grow, they expand, and the Egyptians are worried about an uprising. And so long after, generations after Joseph died, it says that the new Pharaoh came in, he knew nothing of Joseph, and he oppressed the Israelites with hard labor. He enslaved them because he was worried about what they might do. And even more than that, not only did he enslave them, but because the Israelites were expanding, their population was growing at such a tremendous rate, he ordered the murder of all of the Hebrew baby boys. And so it was during this execution order, it was during this time when this was going out, that there was one mother, and through the bravery of some midwives, they saved a child. They took a child, they put him in a basket, and they put that basket in the river, the same river that that child was supposed to die in. And that baby was Moses. He floated down the river, was picked up by Pharaoh's daughter, and ironically was raised in the same household of the one that ordered his execution as a child. And so he grows up, ends up fleeing Egypt because he was murdered, and then God calls him to deliver his people. Here's what it says at the end of the book of Exodus as they're waiting for this call of Moses. It says, "During those many days, the king of Egypt died, and the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery, and they cried out for help. Their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God, and God heard their groaning. And God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew." And so what we can see from this is we can see a couple things about who the Lord is. And this is well before we get to the story of Jesus. But what we see here is, number one, God sees. God sees us. God sees your pain if you're experiencing pain this holiday season. God sees your joy, and he wants to participate in that joy with you. Number two, God hears us. Maybe you're coming into this holiday season and it's not a season of magic, it's not a season of lights or of excitement or eggnog. Maybe for you, this is a season of loneliness. Maybe this is just one more reminder of a spouse that you no longer have, or a mom, or a dad, or a child that's no longer with you. God hears your cries. God knows your longing. Number three, God gets involved. God didn't just hear their cries and go, "Oh, those poor things, those poor Israelites." No, no, no. God intervened. God called Moses. God sent Moses. He equipped him. He empowered Moses to perform these amazing signs, these miracles, these plagues against the Egyptians and against their gods for the liberation of his people. And that brings us to number four, God delivers. God delivers us in the same way that he delivered the Israelites. Fast forward 1,400 years, and there's another baby that is born. And this baby needs protection from a murderous king that is also worried about a threat to his throne. And so instead of fleeing from Egypt, this family flees to Egypt. And of course, the baby that we're talking about is Jesus. Born to Joseph and Mary, here's what it says in Matthew chapter 2. It says, "When the wise men departed from Herod, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, 'Rise, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him.' And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, 'Out of Egypt I called my son.'" And so this Exodus story, this amazing story of deliverance in the Old Testament, is a foreshadowing of the greater deliverance that we experience in Jesus. Jesus is the better Moses. Jesus brings us a better deliverance. It says that the Israelites, they called out to God for help from their slavery. And Romans chapter 10, it says, "Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved," because Jesus brings a better deliverance and he leads us into a better promised land. And so lean into that deliverance that you have in Christ during this Advent season. Feel the longing and know that God is a God who sees, who hears, who gets involved, and who delivers. We'll see you next time.